All right. Well, welcome, guys. I got a very exciting guest for episode 2, the Italian stallion, Mr. Austin Mulder. How you doing, Austin?
Great. How you doing, Jake?
Good.
Everyone's going to think I'm Italian now. I'm really I'm Dutch, like 100% Dutch.
That's it. No, he's the farthest from Italian.
Yeah. Thanks for
having
having me.
Of an ongoing joke. Yeah. So Austin, how you doing today, man? What's going on?
Yeah, it's great. Monday, sun shining, a little hit and go, touch and go this weekend with the weather. So it's nice to see the sun and great to be on Jake's Take.
Right
Excited
on.
to chat about whatever we get up to today.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this podcast is about it's about success and what that means to the individual. So it doesn't have to revolve around real estate, although I know you are a mortgage broker and a real estate investor. So we are going to touch on that. But I really like to open this by just saying, so Austin, what does success mean to you, and how you see yourself building success and making it just going from there, really?
Yeah.
How do you shoot for the stars?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to always be asking yourself, is what does success mean to you, and measuring your progress and the steps that you're taking against that, right? So for me, success isn't really about a dollar figure. It's not really about money at all. It's about freedom and having the time and resources to be able to, number one, spend time with my family, but then also impact other people's lives in meaningful ways and things like, whether that be through charity stuff that I'm interested in or interested in getting involved in. Yeah. But yeah, it's mainly about just giving myself the resources to have the freedom to spend time with my family in meaningful ways. Yeah.
And so, a lot of people say, success means to be able to have, more time, right? More time seems to be the theme. And I think that's for a lot of people. So what more time for you, more time with your family, does that mean, what does that mean to you, Austin? Like, is that, I know you've kind of shown me some, just in conversation, alternative lifestyles, catamarans and sail in the Caribbean with your family. Like, what's your,
I kind of have this, I have this goal to, I don't want to live on a sailboat my entire life, but I have this goal at some point to take like a year or two, with my fiance, soon to be wife. And if we're blessed with children at that point, to go for a little sailboat trip around the world.
I love it.
So there's a lot. I've my parents kind of raised us as travelers. We did a lot of traveling growing up. So I've been fortunate in that respect. I've been able to see a lot of different places around the world, and I'd like to see even more. And I think that a boat would be a great way to do that for a year or two.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess having the ability to do that with my family and spend some meaningful time with my children when they're growing up. Again, if I'm blessed with them, that would be.
Well, yeah, and I've done a fair bit of traveling. I know you've done a fair bit of traveling. Whereabouts have you traveled? This is more of just, I'm very curious because deep down inside, I'm a world traveler myself, right? And I've spent some time doing that. Where have you been? Where would you want to go back?
Yeah, so I've done Europe. My friend Dan and I, who's also an investor, when we were in university, we did, I think, 14 cities in 23 days or something like that, across Europe. So we kind of blitzkrieged Europe. I don't know if I can say that, but we went all over Europe really quickly, and I kind of figured out the cities that I'd want to go back to: Paris, Barcelona, Ibiza, definitely. And Rome, and I love Germany. Like I love Berlin, which is kind of odd, but there's a lot of things that I like about Berlin. So Europe,
beautiful, man. Yeah,
been to Asia a couple times. I love Korea. I have a couple of friends that live there, but absolutely love Korea. Food's amazing. And then where else? A bunch of places in the States, and then all over Central and Central America as well. So,
yeah. And were you investing when you did some of your traveling? Like how did you fund it? Was just more so just save up on the summer job and go?
Yeah. So growing up, like I worked a lot.
Yeah.
So my parents, they always said, you're going to go to university and you're going to pay for it. But I was fortunate. My dad actually has a construction company, that I grew up working for. So I started on the end of a shovel there, when I was like 13 or 14. And when I was 14, I was working like 50-hour weeks, for my dad's construction company all summer. So that I've never not really
worked. That drive comes from, right? You learned young.
Yeah. So that kind of funded my teenage years, and that sort of whatever I was doing in that time. And then by the time I was done there, I started on the banking and mortgage journey. I was, so there's a piece of hair that's going wild there.
we can edit it out. Don't worry.
Edit that out. Yeah. So at that point, when I left my dad's company, I was working as an operations manager there.
Yep.
And then I kind of took a pay cut to start working at BMO as an intern. So I worked in the commercial bank as an analyst intern, helping with underwriting there.
And was that something you like? Was that kind of your path in university? You said, "Hey, I want to get out. I want to go into financing." Or I was
actually studying.
I promise. So.
Yeah, I was actually studying politics in university, so it was kind of out of the vein. My friend who worked at BMO knew that I was interested in doing something different, so he suggested I apply for this internship, and that was kind of like my foot in the door as far as getting into banking and finance and whatnot. So at that point, I added on a business certificate to what I was studying at university. And then that started my path. So I ended up getting hired out of university in working for BMO as an analyst, and then a relationship manager, and then a senior relationship manager. But all through that time, in my second last year of school, I bought my first rental property with my friend Dan, who we ended up going to Europe together.
Yep.
Dan and his brother, and that was. There was a cool arrangement. I didn't really have any money because I was in university. I didn't really have money to be spending on purchasing a house, but I grew up, my dad had rental properties, so I knew a bit about Guelph and the market and what to do as far as managing renovations and rental properties. So that was kind of what I brought to the table for that partnership. And then ended up selling that when I left university, sold it to my partners.
Yep.
And ended up leaving university with no debt and some money in my pocket to go to Asia and then eventually buy another house with. So,
well, heck, that's a story, man, right? Because a lot of people leave university with $200,000 of debt.
Yeah,
right? And to be able to reverse that and actually come out of there above is fantastic. So, and that's something I like to dive into is, where did you learn about investment property? So you kind of mentioned your dad had a few properties, and then you went to business school on top of your politics career or degree. So that's just huge. So did you manage some of his properties for him, or just
I would do
Christmas dinner conversation kind of thing?
Yeah. So I owe a lot of what I am and my knowledge to my dad.
Yeah.
I always say that it wasn't necessarily that he taught me everything. It was the mentality that he instilled in me that everything was figure outable. Right. Like you didn't need to be a plumber to figure out how to hook up a toilet, right? Yeah. You don't need to be a carpenter to figure out how to put trim on something, right? So it was that sort of mentality that I've carried with me, and I owe that to my dad. But yeah, so he had rental properties. I worked on some of the renovations on some of those, but then also doing some light property management duties, and obviously always talking to my dad about real estate. And I would attend RAIN events with him because he's been a member there for like 15 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and he always said because he started buying in 2008, 2009. That was when he started his investment, like right after the sort of crash there. If you could call it that. There wasn't really a huge crashing. It was just kind of like a flat line in Canada. But that was when he sort of started buying, and since then he had been telling me, like, buy a property as soon as you can, like get into the market as quickly as possible, right? And that was what put the pressure on me to sort of figure out how to buy a property, and why I came up with such an interesting arrangement for the first property that I purchased, which was a three-way JV, right?
Yeah, and so tell me about that. So the down payment, how did you guys structure that? How did you come together? And I'm just asking these questions because I find, being a realtor and day to day, I think the biggest question I get is, but how? Or where do I start? How do I start? Right? You can always think of these grand ideas, and that's the kind of the end goal. You can put it on your storyboard or your motivation board, whatever you want to call it. But it's what is step one, right? How do I get my foot in the door? These conversations I find are extremely beneficial for myself and others, because that's been the challenge of my own, right? Is how do I start? Whether it's Facebook advertising or Google AdWords or whatever, right? It's just, what's the first thing?
What's the first step? Yeah.
What's the first step? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for me, the first step was just putting it out there, right? Letting people know that this is your goal, right? I've had incredible success with just allowing people to understand what your goals are, right? And because if you're open about your goals and other people are aware of them, then you're gonna attract that sort of like the sort of opportunities or energy that's required to meet those goals, right? So I made the Dan, who I ended up eventually purchasing the property with, he was very aware that I was looking to purchase a property. He knew that I made him aware of the skill sets that I had. So it was funny enough, I sent Dan the property that we ended up buying, and he responded with, "I have a viewing today at 3. Would you like to come view it with me?"
Right
so
on. So
it was meant to be, right? And then the particular property that we were looking at, there was a really good opportunity to add value very quickly, and I understood how to do that. It was a legal non-conforming duplex. It was an illegal non-conforming duplex. Okay. Which meant that it was operating as a duplex, but the city didn't recognize it as a duplex. And what I understood was that because it had been operating as such for a very long time, that we would be able to go and get a legal non-conforming status on the building. Right. Which basically means, like, it's nuanced with the bylaws, but it basically means like this was existing as a duplex prior to the bylaw being instated, which means that it can lawfully continue as such, even though it doesn't mean such and such and such in the bylaw.
So grandfathered in.
Grandfathered in,
right? After the zoning bylaw. Okay.
Exactly.
And let us know a little bit about that, because that's another big one where a lot of savvy investors will see those opportunities and say, hey, okay, a little bit more work on the front end here, but what, I'm going to increase value just by getting this piece of paper in my hand, saying it's grandfathered in. And I personally had a conversation with many investors about it and how they see it, what they want to do about it. And it is scary if someone doesn't know, right? Yeah. And it turns a lot of people off. So let's dive into that a little bit, if you don't mind.
So we closed on the property with the knowledge that we would probably be able to do this. And within like the first week, we had an inspector out there to tell us what to do in order to get it, like the fire clearance and everything like that. Right. We did some work. It installed some fire alarms, fireproofed a opening in the basement between the two units.
Right.
And it was probably like a couple $1,000 worth of work that we had to do. And then Dan spearheaded the permit submission and everything like that. But we had a legal non-conforming status within 3 weeks of purchasing the property, which was a value lift of at that time it was a value lift of about $50,000.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, and then we wonderful. Proceeded to do some renovations to the property. We probably spent another $40,000 renovating both units. Yep. And my contribution, because I was in school, I didn't have a lot of money to contribute. So I was doing a lot of labor on the property, and we worked out an arrangement where my labor was worth something, yeah, it worked out great. Everyone was happy with the arrangement. So yeah.
Right on. Okay, so that was your first one, and you had this knowledge. And just quickly before we move on, how did you have the knowledge of the zoning and the bylaw and the grandfather? Was that just research? Just get on the city website and dive into it, or where did you pick that up?
It was my dad. He had just finished doing one of those.
Okay.
6 months before that. So I was talking with him, understanding the process, being eager to learn about the process, like what steps he had to take in order to do that. And then I know Dan was also researching the process as well, and he had a lot to contribute to that as well. So
awesome. Well, hopefully in the future someone will come to us and I'll ask them the same question. They'll say, "Oh, I heard it on Jake's take." Austin Mulder told me how to do
it. The main thing is honestly, there's with most zoning bylaws in each city, there is a provision in the bylaw that establishes a mechanism for units existing prior to the bylaw to be legalized. Mm-hmm. It just honestly, it comes down to when the bylaw was instituted. So in Hamilton, that grandfather provision is like something in the 50s. Like it had to exist prior to that, before the 50s. So it's kind of like it's hard to prove that. Like they'll want some sort of documentation that it's been existing like that prior to then. I know people that have gotten attestations signed by neighbors, or affidavits, signed by neighbors, confirming that they've had success with that. But these are all things that you can kind of read through the bylaw, understand the mechanisms of how cities offer this, and then once you understand that, there's a lot of opportunity to that, right?
No, it's power. That's very powerful to have that knowledge. Just puts you above the rest of the pack. So that's awesome. Well, I'm really glad you shared that with us. So Austin, fast forward. Mm-hmm. Let's move to today, and obviously you've put that that method on kind of repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, and so where are you sitting today? If you don't mind me asking, roughly how many doors do you have? Are you using that same method of kind of the duplex triplex, or have you graduated to commercial or other asset classes? Let us know about that.
Yeah. So approaching 50 units currently. Okay. And half of them are under construction or various stages of that, or their planned development. Or so we have my cousin and I have been kind of going at it in Hamilton for a while since I sold that place in Guelph. So we've done a couple flips. I've done some wholesaling as well, but mainly it's multifamilies in Hamilton now. So we have a triplex, and we have a fourplex that we did a conversion on, and then we have a fourplex another fourplex with some JVs that we're going to be adding an additional unit to. So it's going to be 5 unit, and then we have projects in Simcoe, Ontario, which is an adaptive reuse project, which we're converting a 10 unit office building into a 5 office building. So converting the second floor into residential.
I was actually, as you know, I was actually just there the other day looking at it.
Yeah, you were checking out the property that's beside it. Yeah, so exactly. So I
was wondering, I go, you got a lot of vacant units in that building, right? And you're going for a complete repurpose, I guess.
Yeah. So vacant's good actually. So we're not upsetting any of the commercial tenants on the main floor during the pretty intrusive demolition and construction process. Yeah. So that we're gearing up to start this month on the construction there. We also have a flip that we just purchased. Mitchell and I just purchased in Paris, Ontario, which is a really exciting project. I've been looking for a flip for the past 6 to 8 months. I've been offering on places all around Hamilton and even in Paris and stuff. And this is the first one that we were able to actually pick up at a reasonable price that worked for us. Yeah. So really excited to be doing that project. And then I also have.
Sorry to cut you off, Austin, but I think an important question is, so why a flip right now? Just curious. Out of you have so much. You have larger projects on the go. What makes you want to do just kind of a quick and dirty flip?
I just want some. It's just about generating some cash flow for the business.
Okay.
Yeah, like, and then also, it's something that I think Mitchell and I have both talked about, and it's something we'd like to kind of hone our skills on, is how to do some higher end flips. Because typically we've been doing the multi-unit conversions or lower end flips in Hamilton. When I say lower end, it's garbage, but it's not like hardwood floors and stuff. Those are the flips we were doing, like LVP and stuff. But we'd like to be doing some of the higher ends, and this is a method of us trying to hone our skills on that.
Amazing. Yeah, no, and I've seen some of your work, and it's great work. And what's the partner dynamic you've set up for yourself with your cousin there?
So Mitchell, my cousin and best friend since we've been like 2 years old, since we could identify each other. So we've been working together. We first purchased our first property together in Hamilton, 2017, I believe, August 2017. Right. So that was a flip that we actually lived in for a period. And then we rented out some rooms when we lived in it, and then sold it after living in it for 2 years. And then, so the partner dynamic that we kind of have set up now is I manage the sort of business side of things, as far as sorting out, aligning how to acquire the properties from a financing perspective, the legals, managing, just obtaining construction funds and whatnot, whatever that may look like, managing budgets, doing the property management after the fact. That's kind of been my side of things. And Mitchell, who has a very great depth of knowledge when it comes to construction and managing projects. He has his own contracting company, but then also a lot of experience prior to that as a foreman on a construction crew. So Mitchell manages the construction project management for things, as far as organizing trades, making sure everything's going smoothly, and then also he will do some contracting on the projects if we need him to step in. But that's sort of the arrangement that we have. And it works very, very well because we both have continued to prioritize communication throughout the partnership. We never let anything simmer if there's an issue, and just always make sure that there's open and clear communication between the two of us, so that there's no one's guessing about anything, and that everyone's on the same page. Yeah, and
that's and that goes back to, I guess, your first arrangement you had, right, where it was, everything on the table. This is what this is what I want to do. If you're, if hopefully we find some like-minded individuals. And it's a really hot topic, flips, and even if you just sell it or you're going to go with a BRRRR, but giving some advice to the listeners on flips. I'd like to hear your point of view, but exactly what you've told me right there is what I've suggested to many clients of mine, where it's, I want to find a flip. Okay, great. Let's first put the team together, because, we can find the house to do the flip, but who's doing the work, right? Because I know, Bob, you're not going to swing a hammer. You're more of the numbers guy, or vice versa. Bob is the contractor, but he's looking for some cash, so he needs that cash partner or the partner to come in to help with financing or a number of things. So I think that's a really good dynamic, couldn't stress it enough for people looking to do a flip, is to partner with somebody, but try to find like-minded individuals, and be patient. At least is my point of view, and I want to hear yours. But I think some people, they get the bug to invest, and it's hey, let's just get in and do something, right? And the first contractor or the first money guy that comes along, they go, great, let's do a deal. And I've done it, right? Like, it's just, you get that bug and you want to go, but I like to say, kind of, hey, step back, let's take a deep breath here, and let's do a little bit of networking first. Like, definitely, like, you can talk to Eric, the agent that I typically work with. He's been putting offers in for like
6 months on properties.
Yeah.
And for me, and it's just been about being patient. We're not overpaying for things. And I think that's frustrating sometimes to a real estate agent, is that you're like, if you're very confident in the numbers on a property, and which I am, like when I go into a flip analysis, I know because we've done so many renos, like I know what it's going to cost to bring the property to a certain standard. I know I have a pretty good idea of what the property is going to be worth when we're done. I know flippers that'll include like they'll anticipate market growth in their calculations. I don't do that, which might be losing out on some things, but and then I know what the purchase price can be once I have the finished value that I'm confident in, and the construction costs and holding costs.
Yeah.
Then I know what the finished value is, and I know what we're comfortable working for, like what our profit margin can be. Now, at the end of the day, like that might mean that when I put that price on the agreement of purchase and sale, that I'm not getting the property. But I'm not comfortable putting Mitchell and I in a position where we're only making $40,000 for a year of work or 10 months of work, and all of this risk that's associated with taking on a project like that. It's not worth it for that amount, because projects can go sideways and you can lose your shirt, and I'm not willing to put us in that position, right?
Yeah. No, and I can, excuse me, I can definitely back up the, what you're saying there with, even my clients, my very good clients that we work together, and it's the same thing, right? It's let's quickly do an analysis on it. Let's get an offer in that works for us. And the funny thing is, at least with a lot of commercial real estate, larger commercial real estate, is the offer that works for us is the offer that's going to work for the bank.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The bank is going to do a lot of due diligence. They're not going to put their money on a deal that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So not all the time, and there's definitely cash buyers out there, but it's funny because, like recently we had a deal where we put in an offer, and it was at the kind of the top of our threshold, but it was at the top of what the bank was going to lend as well. Right.
Yeah.
And we were very confident with it. We felt it was a strong offer. We put it in, got an answer back. No, sorry, we got an offer at full ask. We're going to take that. Well, 30 days later, here we are. He called me yesterday. Hey, the offer didn't come together. Oh, why? Financing. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, but then still trying to get us up right over the 3.5. And it was just, we had this, so we literally drafted the same offer, resubmitted the same offer. And again, I said, look, this is not, it's not like we're trying to get a steal here. It's just we're trying to get a deal that can actually come together.
That you can actually finance, right?
That you can actually finance, and you can actually have the appropriate due diligence period to get that financing, right? So stick to your guns. Yeah, I think that's a really strong lesson.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand how that works, especially when you're playing in the commercial space. You need an appraisal to come in at that value too.
Yeah.
Right. So you can buy if you wanted to go buy any property right now, you could, but it would just be like you could overpay for it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get the appraisal. You're not going to get the financing, or you're going to have to put so much money down that it doesn't even make sense as an investment anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand. And like, for instance, another example, I was working with a client in my capacity as a mortgage broker. They were looking at purchasing a trailer park for a certain amount. And I ran through the numbers with them in the due diligence. And I said, you're paying $500,000 too much for this property right now. And then I get into it and I ask them, what was the offer process like? And they said, well, there was multiple offers.
Yeah.
And we won the process. And I was like, well, no, you didn't win the process because you're overpaying for this. Right. So as soon as I heard multiple offer scenario on trailer park, and I'm like, it's hysteria at sometimes, right?
No, and I know all too well. As you know, I actually we just offered on a trailer park as well with a few.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the financials and going back and forth.
But we think we got the right deal.
Honestly, your deal makes more sense than the deal that these people we were working through with them on. So
no, for sure. And we've done our due diligence, but now we're going through that process of bank appraisal, right? ESA, environmental report. Let's check the septic, check the wells. So at the end of the day, by the time we're done our DD, it's more so, hey, is the bank going to lend, right? Has the bank done their due diligence? And if the bank's willing to lend, it gives me a big boost of confidence on the investment.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
So that's a nice little tidbit there. So just to wrap things up, because we are kind of getting that 30-minute point. I try to keep these podcasts just around that 30 minutes. But let's talk about kind of your future plans, if you want to summarize. Yeah. So you're at 50 doors right now, 50 units right now. You're looking for, let's call it, financial freedom to have time, right? You don't need to, we don't need to be taking over the world here, but definitely trying to find that balance between, hey, I want to get in my catamaran and go sail, the Caribbean, and I got 50 doors today, right? So at least where do you see the next couple of years, 3-4 years, whatever it's going to take? What do you think?
So as it stands right now, if I finished all the projects that we have on the go right now and had them all rented out and everything, I could probably retire. I would never do that though, because I would go crazy. So I'll always have something on the go. What does my future look like? I'm not sure. I'm still very young, and I have to keep reminding myself of that. There's still a lot ahead of me. My ideal future would be heavily annoyingly involved in my children's life if I'm blessed with them. And then a goal of mine would be to have some high level involvement with an affordable housing not for profit. Right. Maybe acting on the board or something like that. Yeah. I have a lot of interest in modern methods of constructions and their applications and how they can be applied to making housing construction more affordable in a lot of ways, and the implications that can have on affordable housing builds. So that would kind of be, once I have the time and freedom, where I would like to apply myself. Is working on affordable housing in some capacity, and how to expand that. So that's
and that's I know we've actually spoken about all of this stuff off of camera, and just chatting, and I think that's actually a really wonderful idea. Financial freedom doesn't always have to be, hey, go live on the sailboat for 2 years, like you said, right? But more so, sure, I'll take off a few months and go on the sailboat. But it really is, at least what I see, and I agree with you fully, is, just allow me the time to do what I want to do. And that doesn't mean you get out of real estate and go sit on a beach, but it means work on.
No, I would never be able to do that. I would never be able to do.
Similar to me that way. Like that's not in the cards.
So to me, it would be making sure that I would have the time to spend with my family and friends, but then also use the freedom that I have to apply it to something really meaningful, right? And for me, that would be affordable housing. For other people, it might be something else. Like it might be giving back in other ways, or it might be doing other passion projects. But to me, that's the meaning of success, is having that sort of freedom to be able to do that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, look, a powerful message, and that's where I'm going to leave this podcast, because I think that's a great way to end. And I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time this morning to come on, and I'm hoping we can get you on again in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's been a great discussion.